as to whether there's a deep state, they're not smart enough to be a deep state. If there were a deep state, we wouldn't be here having this debate, I can tell you. There are a lot of good people out there trying to do the right thing, but the idea that we're run by a deep state is deeply paranoid.
So I respectfully disagree with that, actually. We use terms like America first. I'll define it for you. Because sometimes we are lazy, we bandy it around, we don't say what it means. Here's what it means. Two things. One is the people we elect to run the government are the ones who actually run the government. And number two is those leaders owe their sole moral duty to the citizens of this country and not another one. That's what it means to stand for America First principles. Let's start with number one. Today, the people who set most public policy are not the ones who were ever elected to run the government. In fact, there are 4 million people in the federal bureaucracy, including, I'm sorry to say, in the national security establishment, who are not only never elected to their positions, but actually, according to the supposed interpretation of civil service rules, cannot even be fired by the people who were elected to those positions. That's not actually a democracy. That is a new type of modern technocracy that would make our founding fathers, including those you quoted at the start, roll over in their graves that they never imagined. So I do think that a root cause of many of our foreign policy failures is also the same root cause as many of our domestic policy failures, including the rise of the welfare and the regulatory state. It is that the people we elect to run the government aren't the ones actually running the government. And I do think that the warfare state is upstream of the welfare state. When you invade the rest of the world, you effectively invite them. That's exactly what's happening to Europe, and it's deeply linked to our own border crisis in this country.
Right.
So the question is, how do we best advance the interests of the United States of America? I'll start again with the question.
Well, I mean, very quickly, because I want to see if we can
just a quick, I'll be very quick here. I just wanted Ambassador Bolton to give an opportunity to address a question I raised at the outset. If we can pick one example, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, any example from the 21st century where that foreign intervention on behalf of the United States actually ended up advancing American interests, I'd wait for the answer to that.
Afghanistan, let's start there.
Well, let's start there, absolutely.
Maybe you'll give me a chance to finish. After the 9/11 attack, we went into Afghanistan to overthrow the Taliban and defeat al-Qaeda and prevent future terrorist attacks against the United States. And at least until 2021, when pursuant to the Trump-agreed withdrawal proposal with the Taliban and the Biden actual withdrawal, we had succeeded. There were no terrorist attacks against the United States from Afghanistan after 2001. Now, the foreign terrorist fighters are returning to Afghanistan, and even the Biden administration has testified publicly that ISIS-K has the capability to launch terrorist attacks against the United States today, as it launched earlier this year in Iran and in Russia.
And this is where we have a difference in opinion. If you call Afghanistan a success, I look 20 years later, that same Taliban is still in charge, armed with $80+ billion of US military equipment.
Because we gave it back to them, for God's sakes. How hard is that to figure out?
The intervention, it's like a Marxist argument, right? The Marxists always argue that the problem with the state intervention is we didn't do enough of it. And that's exactly the form of argument that we have with the interventionist philosophy as well.
We had a very imperfect government in Afghanistan. We were not there to make it into the Switzerland of Central Asia.
And the Taliban is in charge today.
And had we stayed, I will finish my sentence. Had we stayed, the Taliban would not be in charge. But it was Donald Trump's desire to get American forces out that produced this catastrophic mistake. I suppose you supported the withdrawal. You're responsible, that position is responsible for the consequences of Taliban being back in control.
I respectfully disagree. When you actually could have executed a withdrawal in the manner that President Trump laid out, don't do it during fighting season. Do it in an intelligent way.
You really don't
One at a time. Ambassador, I'll let you come back. Yeah.
Sure. So the bottom line is I judge a set of policies by its results. Iraq is more vulnerable to Iranian incursion before we showed up. Libya is a failed state. Syria, Afghanistan, now run by the Taliban. If we fail to learn from our mistakes of the past, we are doomed to repeat them in the future. And that's why I think we have to recenter the obligation of U.S. elected leaders to focus on exclusively what advances American interests rather than advancing a bureaucratic state's vision of what they call advancing democracy.